Nuki is an Austrian company that's been making smart locks in Europe for years, and now they're coming to North America with their first lock for the US market. We have a little bit different locks over here across the pond, so it does take a little bit different hardware. Now, this new lock has a lot going for it on paper as a potentially great retrofit lock design with matter over thread and an optional wireless keypad, but one kind of big drawback. Although overall, I think it would be a great fit for my parents' house where they need to keep the external deadbolt of their lock the same for HOA regulations. But first, I want to get it installed and set up here in my office to make sure that it lives up to the good things I've actually heard about Nuki locks. And later in the video, we'll get to that one major drawback. And thanks to Nuki for sending me this lock free of charge before the release date with no strings attached. This video is not sponsored. Now, taking this lock out of the box, the premium build quality is really obvious. This is a stainless steel exterior, and it looks like a lock fit for much nicer, much more elegant homes. Oftentimes, a lot of smart locks can look like a bunch of cheap plastic on your door. Nuki also touts that this lock, like a lot of their locks, has a brushless motor similar to like an electric car motor. So it's gonna be very fast performing, and we'll see how that turns out in a minute. Now, one downside is that it kind of looks like a doorknob, not a deadbolt. So it might be a little confusing for new users of the door, but I think you can get it figured out pretty quickly. Now, before we get started with installation, you need to make sure that your deadbolt can turn easily to the lock position and unlock position. If you have to really give a good push as you turn it or jostle the door, you'll want to fix the alignment of your door or maybe make the hole where your deadbolt goes into the door frame a little bigger before you get started with installation of any smart lock. Now, for this Nuki deadbolt, you want to download the Nuki app from the App Store, and it will walk you through the installation process. First, you want to remove the interior part of your existing deadbolt, and Nuki provided some nice tape for this because as you remove the interior part, the exterior part of your lock becomes unstable and could potentially fall out. So you can use the supplied tape to keep that stuck during the installation. Then you need to put this initial plate that Nuki has on the door. Now, be careful here that you get this the right side up. As I initially installed this on my test door here in my office, I put it upside down, and that gave me some problems later until I figured out that I'd gotten it the wrong way. So just keep that in mind, that you need to make sure it's right side up, and you just put the 2 screws in and attach that plate to the front of your existing deadbolt. Nuki also has some steps here to make sure that all the pieces of your deadbolt will measure up and work properly with the Nuki lock, and then different edge cases in the app that I did not have to go through for different types of non-standard. Once you have the plate installed, Nuki's app will show you how to snap the smart controller and main part of the deadbolt onto the plate. And once I got my plate installed the proper direction, this worked for me on the first try, but struggled a little bit until I figured that out. You might have noticed in some of the screenshots already, they have 1,000,001 promos for this Nuki Premium. Now, I definitely have some thoughts about this. So seeing this at launch just gave me a lot of reservations about the lock, which then had to be proved wrong by testing and trying out the lock and making sure it works in all the ways I expect it to. And that gets to adding it to Apple Home, which was really straightforward. You just scan the Matter code and you add the lock to your Apple Home, assign it to a room, and then you can get notifications when someone locks or unlocks the door. And this is a really cool part about a retrofit deadbolt lock like this in Apple Home, is that even if someone is using the physical key to unlock your door, you still get a notification about it, which could be really nice. Let's say if you're renting, maybe other people who rent the apartment to you have access to your apartment, then you could get a notification whenever your door is unlocked and be able to get an idea if someone is coming into your place. So now that the lock is added into my choice of Apple Home or your smart home platform of choice, Nuki advertises the brushless motor on this should be very fast at locking and unlocking the door, and I was very impressed at how well this works. The communication with Apple Home was very solid. And so then I thought, let's try out this wireless keypad. Now in the app, you go through a process to pair a new keypad with your existing lock, and then of course you can put this keypad outside of your door, and someone could use the keypad to unlock your door, just like they could use existing physical keys to unlock your door. There are options. And I love this keypad design, except for one thing, which is that it does not have the number 0. So is 0 a number? I don't know, that's another debate, but it doesn't have a 0 on the keypad. So any kind of pin that you would think of that makes sense to you that has a 0 in it, you can't use it with this keypad. But otherwise, it's great because it has just very premium feeling physical buttons that just are wonderful to press. And because they're physical buttons and not, let's say, capacitive touch buttons like a lot of locks, the first time you hit a button on the screen, it registers that as a pin code. A lot of locks, you have to touch the keypad to wake up the lock before it will start registering your presses as a pin code. So it could be confusing for someone if they type in the pin code and the lock never registers the first digit, so then they're just getting wrong pin code errors all the time. And so it's really nice for other people using your keypad that they can just go up and type in the key. They don't have to think twice about, oh, is the lock awake, etc. The other thing I love about the design is the LED lights at the top. So as you're entering your code, which needs to be 6 digits, the corresponding lights for each number of the digit lights up. So as you enter your first digit, the first LED turns on, and then so on until you filled all the LEDs, and then it checks to see if the pin code's correct. You can also customize how this works with locking the door from outside your home. So you can use, let's say, the back button by default on the keypad to lock your door, or you can have it set to enter your pin code, and that pin code would lock the door. And you can also just have that feature off entirely. This is always a great feature of a smart lock. Let's say you're going out for a run or something where you don't want to have your keys with you, then you can just go ahead and use the keypad to lock the door. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this lock over to my parents' house and install it. But one other detail to mention on the keypad is that it works with a fingerprint as well. So you can register a fingerprint inside the Nuki app while you're nearby the keypad, and then that fingerprint can be used to unlock the door. It doesn't have to be just your fingerprint either. Another detail is charging the lock. So when you want to charge the lock, there's a magnetic USB-C cable special to the lock. You can't just use any cable. And one end of that cable attaches to the lock like MagSafe on an Apple laptop. And then the other end is just a USB-C cable you can plug into any power adapter. Now you can charge the lock while it's on the door, or you can remove the smart part of the lock and just charge that on its own if you can't run a cable to your lock. I think overall it's nice to have a rechargeable battery inside of a lock because you don't have to waste money on all these new batteries to put in the lock, but at the same time you can't go instantly from low battery to fully charged like you can in a lock where you change out the batteries. So let's talk about that big drawback of Nuki Premium. Now my contacts at the PR firm representing Nuki told me that it will cost $5.90 per month here in the US. And that's not bad for a subscription, but the only thing you really get is access to the lock away from home just to check the status of it, or get notifications through the Nuki app, or you could also remotely change PIN codes for the keypad. Otherwise, you have to be at home around the keypad to add or remove PIN codes from that. You cannot manage those PIN codes inside of another smart home platform like Apple Home, because in Apple Home's case, this does not support Apple Home Key, which we'll talk more about in a minute. Now, they are offering a lot of attractive sign-up options with the potential of getting just a lifetime if you buy this lock now and sign up for Nuki Premium, which then means you don't have a monthly recurring cost. But I think that really makes it clear that Nuki isn't intending for the subscription to be for us smart home power users. It's for a lot of the people who just pick this lock up, don't know any better, see, oh well, I guess that's $5 a month, and sign up for it. And then Nuki is not giving them really much value that they couldn't get somewhere else for an additional fee. And I just see that as kind of preying on customers who don't know any better, and I don't love that setup. But aside from this one major flaw, and the lack of 0 on the keypad, I think it's a really great lock. And so I actually took it over to my parents' house, installed this lock on their door, and I was really impressed with the performance there, just like in my home. And as I was going through the process of resetting the lock to factory settings and the keypad through the app, I was really noticing all the attention to detail that Nuki has in the software experience for their locks. I think it's clear that they're very thoughtful about the user experience. Now, why would you choose this over a lock that supports Apple HomeKey, right? This doesn't support Apple HomeKey, which gives you tapping your Apple Watch to your keypad or door lock, or tapping your iPhone to the same keypad or door lock to quickly unlock the door. It also allows you to assign and remove PIN codes inside of Apple Home that then apply to that lock or other HomeKey locks you might have. I think, generally speaking, it's a good idea if you're an Apple user to go with a HomeKey lock, but this lock has a really nice hardware design that looks a lot better than a lot of other locks, retrofit or otherwise. And so if you're looking at a lock where you want to keep your same keys, maybe you're required to keep the outside lock for whatever kind of regulations where you live, then this is a really nice option that gives you a beautiful hardware design that would fit in the nicest of homes. And of course, there'll be a link to check this out at the top of the description. Thanks again so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.